Welcome back. You're watching Showdown. I spoke a little while ago, to Senator Matthias Cormann. I started by asking him about that gift that keeps on giving if you're looking for a little bit of political inconsistency in the opposition, Andrew Robb. Senator Matthias Cormann, thanks for joining us on Showdown.
Good to be here.
Why has Andrew Robb contradicted Tony Abbott on paid parental leave?
Well, Andrew Robb hasn't contradicted Tony Abbott on parental leave. We have a fair dinkum commitment to a fair dinkum paid parental leave scheme, which we will implement in government.
Okay, but he's corrected that he didn't mean to contradict him today, but yesterday he did contradict him. He made it clear that the policy was still essentially up in the air.
Well, we have a very clear and very demonstrated commitment to a fair dinkum paid parental leave scheme. It is there for all to see. It is an important economic and an important social reform, and one, of course, that we will implement in government. It recognises that family are the foundation of our society. It will be good for women, it will be good for families, and it will be good for our economy, because it will help deal with our three big economic challenges: population, productivity, and the need to increase workforce participation.
In terms of social liberalism, I like the policy. You know that I've written in favour of it when it was first announced by Tony Abbott before the last election, but the Finance Minister saying what he said yesterday is an indication that there's at least disquiet in the economic team about the cost of this paid parental leave. Now, you're the Assistant Treasurer. What's your view on this?
Well, I mean, Andrew Robb has been very clear in his comments this morning that the coalition stands by its commitment to a fair dinkum paid parental leave scheme.
So what happened yesterday? What was going on that he could get it so wrong yesterday?
Well, I'm not sure that I can add anything more other than to say that Andrew Robb has made very clear again this morning that the coalition stands by its commitment to a fair dinkum paid parental leave scheme.
Is it tough for the opposition at the moment trying to make the numbers add up? Because on the one hand you're getting rid of revenue grabs like the mining tax and the carbon tax, but at the same time as that you're trying not to cut too much else, I suppose, in terms of the optics of presenting yourself to the Australian people. It must be difficult in Opposition Expenditure Review Committee meetings.
Well, what is tough is that we've had a Labor government over the last 4 years that has delivered $167 billion in accumulated deficits. We've got a Treasurer in Wayne Swan who has taken a budget position with a $20 billion surplus and $70 billion in net assets, and turned that around into $167 billion worth of accumulated deficits and $133 billion worth of government net debt. And of course, the mining tax package and the carbon tax package both leave the budget worse off, because Labor has already committed more in spending than the various taxes are going to rise in revenue. So, I mean, is it a challenge? For sure, but when you look at this government, in the 12 months from December 2010 to December 2011, the budget position, the budget deficit for this financial year has blown out by more than $25 billion. So really, I mean, what we are looking at is cutting the waste from this government, that we are totally committed to leading a government that lives within its means, where there is no more need for all these additional ad hoc tax grabs that Labor has delivered over the last few years.
Treasurers and Prime Ministers often have their tensions. We saw it between Peter Costello and John Howard. Peter Costello mentioned to me for the Howard biography the tensions of dealing with the Prime Minister when you're the Treasurer and trying to rein spending in. Does Joe Hockey have the same problem with Tony Abbott in your view?
We have got a very strong team led by Tony Abbott. We have a strong economic team led by our Shadow Treasurer in Joe Hockey, and of course we are going through a very methodical process at the moment through our Expenditure Review Committee, going through the budget.
Is that made easy? Is that made easier with Arthur Sinodinos joining the team, do you think?
Well, Arthur Sinodinos will make a fine contribution, and in fact he's already making a fine contribution to our team. He has joined, along with Jamie Briggs, our Expenditure Review Committee, and of course we are continuing with a very methodical process, going through Labor's budget line by line to cut the waste, to identify savings, so that a future coalition government will deliver what this current government has failed to deliver, and that is a budget surplus and a government that lives within its means.
Senator Cormann, let's be serious though. Arthur Sinodinos, 10-year serving Chief of Staff to John Howard, very good economic mind. Why isn't he on the front bench?
Well, I mean, obviously front bench positions are a matter for Tony Abbott as our leader. Arthur Sinodinos has joined the Senate only recently, and Tony Abbott has given him a number of very important jobs. Arthur Sinodinos is chairing our Coalition Deregulation Task Force, given the job of finding $1 billion worth of savings per year in reducing red tape for business. And of course he has been appointed very quickly onto the Expenditure Review Committee. I've got no doubt that Arthur Arthur Sinodinos will continue to make an increasing contribution to the coalition team. He was a very strong addition.
Increasing in terms of ministry, do you think?
Well, I mean, that is not a matter for me. That is a matter for Tony Abbott. But already Tony Abbott has given him a number of important jobs. And I'm sure that at some point in the future, Tony Abbott will make other judgments, even when he sees fit.
All right, let's talk about Wayne Swan. He's had a real crack in the Monthly at some wealthy Australians, some of Australia's wealthiest people, including miners, people like Gina Reinhart and Clive Palmer. What's your view, in a general sense, I suppose, to start with, about the comments that Wayne Swan has made?
Well, I mean, Wayne Swan is the Yosemite Sam of Australian politics. He has completely lost the plot. I mean, you know, obviously, exactly. That's how he's going. I mean, he's fresh from his jihad against Kevin Rudd. He clearly had a rush of blood. He was desperate to keep on shooting, so who better to target than a few mining entrepreneurs who happen to have been critical of some of Labor's dud policies like the mining tax and the carbon tax. I mean, the truth is that Wayne Swan is a failed treasurer who is deeply resentful of success. And if you look at the way he has approached public policy, it is always clear to see he resents success. I mean, the mining tax fiasco was his failure, his personal failure. Yet it was Kevin Rudd who got the boot, and Wayne Swan got a promotion. It was Wayne Swan and Julia Gillard who told Kevin Rudd to scrap his proposal to price carbon. Yet it was Wayne Swan and Julia Gillard who got a promotion when Kevin Rudd got
But in
the
relation to his comments, though, about some of these wealthy Australians, now, you may be right about your character assessment about his motives, but he's likely to resonate with the Australian people on this, isn't he? A lot of Australians wonder why some people are getting so rich when they're suffering under the weight of cost of living.
Well, I think that Australians are way smarter than this treasurer. I think that Australians understand that Andrew Forrest has started a company from nothing in 2003 and that he has provided significant investments in infrastructure, significant investments that have delivered 3,500 jobs for Australians, for West Australians and for Australians. I mean, Andrew Forrest's success as a mining entrepreneur is in our national interest, is delivering for the national interest, whereas Wayne Swan's failures as treasurer will mean that we will have to pay the bill for years to come. I mean, clearly, you know, at times people will run arguments that we might not agree with. But surely somebody who has started a company from nothing and made it a successful company, who has started a company from nothing and created 3,500 new jobs, somebody who is invested in infrastructure, surely he is somebody worth listening to, even if we don't always agree with.
But what about listening?
They shouldn't just be belittled as mining billionaires.
Look, I think that some of the criticisms from Wayne Swan were overstated. I agree with you about that. But I also wonder, though, if there's something in what he's saying about their level of voice through their use of money as opposed to the voice of other elements within Australian society. What about that?
Well, Wayne Swan uses taxpayers' money to fund, you know, the PR, the propaganda campaign to try and sell Labor's dud policies.
Not as much
like
as
the carbon tax and the mining tax. Well, but the point here is, Wayne Swan, he goes into the taxpayers' dollars to fund his propaganda campaigns, and he doesn't like it when some businesses happen to spend their own money to try and make an argument as part of, I mean, that is part of democracy. Surely, you know, we don't want to stop businesses or even individual mining entrepreneurs to express their view in this free country of ours. Doesn't mean that we always have to agree with them. But people who start something from nothing, who take risks along the way, who create jobs, who invest in infrastructure, who quite frankly are helping to grow
our
prosperity. Well, I mean, I've seen comments from Wayne Swan where he attacked Andrew Forrest and FMG for not paying tax. The truth of the matter is, when you start a company from nothing, there's going to be a period when you don't pay company tax, which is a tax on profits.
But he's now the second wealthiest person in Australia.
And of course, well, I mean, we don't have at this stage a tax on capital. So if Wayne Swan is suggesting that we should have a tax on wealth, then that is a point that then he should be honest and prosecute that case. But the truth of the matter is that companies like FMG, like Atlassian and others that have sort of piggybacked on the success of FMG, they pay taxes when they become profitable. And of course, by public information it's out there, FMG expects to pay about $1 billion worth of tax next financial year, $2 billion worth of tax the following year. Now, I'm not here to be an apologist for FMG either, but it offends me that we can have the treasurer of this country go for this simplistic, on the face of it, populist criticism of people, quite frankly, who have put their own prosperity on the line in order to deliver a real economic benefit for the nation.
Final line of questioning. Bob Carr in the Senate. He's now going to be opposite you. You're a senator, not in portfolio, obviously, but nonetheless in the Senate chamber. Are you quaking in your boots? He's a pretty good orator.
Well, we'll see how he goes. I mean, there's some question marks of how effective he was as Premier in New South Wales. I mean, he's replacing Mark Habib. Obviously, the process with which he came into the Senate, true to form with the Gillard government, was somewhat messy. We'll see how he delivers.
But he value adds for Labor, doesn't he? I mean, he's a political adversary, I get that. But at the end of the day, they're going to be a better team with him than they were without him.
Well, he's certainly more experienced than anyone in the Gillard government from the Prime Minister down, on the face of it, but we'll see how he manages to make the step up from state to federal politics. I mean, the future will tell.
All right, Senator Matthias Cormann, thanks for joining us on Showdown.
Good to be here.